I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today. This is our Artist Spotlight podcast series where we introduce emerging artists and people around the community who really enjoy music, and it gives you a chance to sample some of their music and get to know them as an individual, just not hearing the music itself. And I was excited to be able to do this with Margaret, and I appreciate everyone coming out and literally probably risking life and limb out there. So everyone, please be careful on the way home. I don't know if perhaps Margaret has any, was it polar vortex music in the...
Oh, yes, I do. Oops.
No.
Okay. Okay, so this first piece I will play for you all tonight is the first of Liszt's 12 Transcendental Etudes. It's in C major. It's a really kind of funny, sort of weird piece. It ends fully in C major, but it just has this really murky, strange beginning, and all of Liszt's Transcendental Etudes kind of have that sort of murky, strange quality, and so this first one I feel like it really sets off the program for tonight, just like a bombastic ending and sort of gregarious and just really out there. So this is the first Transcendental Etude by Franz Liszt in C major. Thank you.
Some questions for you here to begin the show, and there's obviously a missing person with you that should be here. Justin is unfortunately not able to make it out due to weather, but I do have some of his questions, but I'll kind of dive in, and I want to ask you questions, I guess, starting off early. Like, what age did you actually start playing the piano, and why the piano?
First, I have a couple different answers. I think I really started playing piano before I was born. My mother, when she was pregnant with me, she was teaching lessons all the time. And so I think even when I was in utero, I was hearing classical music all the time. And even at lessons, she would take me with her, and I would be hearing music. But I really didn't start until I was 5, and she would tie me down to the chair and make me practice for an hour. But not really, no. We had a lot of fun playing piano together and learning, and finally when my obstinance and stubbornness started to get in the way, she found other teachers, but I started at 5, and I've enjoyed it my whole life pretty much, yeah.
So when did you actually start seeing this as a viable career option?
Well, I went through a lot of ups and downs with piano. I would stop and start, and it was just this constant struggle, it felt like, until I started homeschooling my last 2 years, and my mother, I couldn't have done it without her. She was so wonderful, and it was really at that point when I was about 16 or 17 when I said, I really want to do this. I want to take this seriously. I love piano. I love music, and I mean, well, even since I was 5, I always wanted to be a concert pianist, but it was kind of more of a dream than actually something I was trying to attain at the time. So then I started really around 15 or 16, taking it seriously and practicing, and then I started realizing, you know what, I would love to have a studio when I grow up and teach children and really make it a career. Yeah.
That's great. Age 15, 16, I'm barely able to dress myself, and you're doing amazing things on the piano. What specifically drew you to this type of music? I mean, to play classical piano and Bach and Beethoven and that sort of stuff. Why that?
Oh, sorry. Well, my mother, she really, both my sister and I, we grew up around classical music and just art, and our whole family is really artistic. My dad's a painter. My mom, she sings, she writes poetry and stories, and she's also a musician. So I really, she kind of didn't really want us listening to pop music of the 90s at the time. So
That's the best era, though.
I know, you got, like Spice Girls and everything. But so because I just was constantly listening to it, I really find something quite beautiful about classical music in general. And I think I've just always been drawn to the more just technical and beautiful sides of it that you don't really experience with much pop music or R&B or I mean, that's just my opinion, I don't know.
You have another piece for us?
Yes, I do. This is Mozart's Sonata K576 in D major. First I will play the first movement and then I'll play the second movement, but take a little pause. And so the first movement, one of my biggest inspirations my whole life has been Vladimir Horowitz. He has been my idol. He's been someone I just look up to as a wonderful musician. And he, later in his life, really started to study the Mozart concertos, the Mozart sonatas, and he was an amazing sight reader, so he would just play through the concertos like it was nothing, like just eating cake or something. And one thing Horowitz did say, as I read his autobiographies all the time, and one thing he did say was, in order to play Mozart, you have to be connected to your inner child. And I think that is something that's really true with this piece. There's a lot of playfulness, there's a lot of character, and just youth in it. So the first movement is in D major, and it's again a gregarious piece. It's kind of funny. It has a lot of humor in it. So this is Mozart Sonata K576 in D major, first movement. A few memory slips here and there. It's okay. So this second movement, it still has some of the same youthfulness, but it's slower and quite beautiful. It's sort of ethereal almost, and you know, it has moments of seriousness, but overall, I think it's just supposed to be a very peaceful piece. So this is the second movement of the Mozart K576, and actually, sonatas usually sometimes have a form of the first movement will be in the tonic key, like D major, and the second movement will be in the dominant key, and in this case, it's in A major. So this is the second movement of Mozart K576 in D major, Adagio.
I got to admit, I kind of put Margaret on the spot there. She had a couple pieces picked out, and I asked her if she could pluck a few more to maybe add to. So thank you for doing that. I think you only had a couple days to prepare for a couple of these.
Yeah, there's definitely 3 or 4 in there that I took pretty much Monday through today pulling together, but it was a lot of fun re-exploring some of these pieces that I haven't touched in years, and so it was a lot of fun for me, more exploratory work as far as growing as a musician, so it's wonderful. Thank you.
I see that you attended Temple University.
Yes, I did.
You must have built some strong friendships along the way there, because it always seems like music draws people together, and it kind of gives a universal bond, and it doesn't matter what else you have in common with other people, but if you have that musical bond, somehow it can spark something. So did you have any sort of experiences like that?
Yes, I did. My best friend, who actually we're still wonderful friends. We met at Temple. Her name's Teresa. She's wonderful, just love of my life, maybe. And the first time I met her, though, I did not get the right vibe from her. We met twice, and the first time I just remember she had this. Anyway, she wore her hair kind of strangely, didn't really talk to anyone. So I got the wrong vibe. Second time I met her, we met in a piano class, which was titled Accompanying and Piano Ensemble. Basically, you just played duets with other pianists, and it was fun, but kind of like, well, I want to learn with, anyway, I want to learn with another instrumentalist, but whatever. So the second time we met, we just became inseparable ever since, and we definitely were kind of a couple of dumb kids sometimes. We kind of like to play pranks on people in the music school. One person in particular who, just to describe this person initially, he was very loud and obnoxious. And for now, we will call him Fred, just for our purposes. And so he would come downstairs to the basement where all the practice rooms are, and he would have his headphones in, and he'd be like, not screaming, but in a very loud tone, singing all the rap songs, which had lots of swear words and just were about, dirty things, nasty things. And he also brought his tennis bag with him wherever he went, because I think he thought he was a tennis star. So along with that, he had a huge container of whey protein mix. He would always have a gallon of milk in the fridge and just had all this stuff. So something Teresa and I started doing, which probably wasn't too smart because he was in shape and he was very scary. Something we started doing as a little prank was there was a space above the practice rooms and the ceiling. And we would take his protein shake and his Quick Oats, whatever he had, and sometimes just one sneaker, and I would sneak up on top of the practice rooms and put it there. and he would come downstairs and be very angry, and he would just start being like, "Hey, where the is all my stuff? Where you guys can't do this? This is so rude. You little, whatever." And we would just crack up and leave through the back, and so that was fun but stupid. Another thing we did, same person we played this joke on. There was one time we were all just sitting, and there was these crappy little couches they put down in the basement for us to relax and rest on. And so we were all sitting in a group, and there was a little, just like little sandwich bags, like one of those little narrow sandwich bags, and it just had, flour or maybe protein shake in it. I'm not sure what, but his tennis bag was sitting next to the windowsill. And he wasn't there, and for some reason I thought it was a great idea to take the little bag of flour or whatever it was and put it in his tennis bag. And so, we're all talking, laughing, joking around, putting the stuff in his bag, and we go back in our practice rooms, and maybe about 20 to 30 minutes later, one of the other pianists comes into my room and he says, "Margaret, Brian called the cops down here. And he's really pissed." And I started cracking up. I mean, I think I might have almost peed my pants at that point. I was laughing so hard. So, he goes on to say, they're telling him it's just a bag of flour or whatever it was, and he's really pissed though. So Teresa and I grabbed her. I ran into her room, said, "Get your stuff, we're out of here right now." And we just left through the back, and so that, we did a lot of stupid stuff like that, but we were attached at the hip, we were best friends, and we just made each other laugh all the time, and inside and outside of the practice room, we loved playing music together, duets, we put together quirky little arrangements of things, and so we really, definitely had that musical friendship bond you were talking about, definitely.
Yeah, you do something like that now, you'd have Homeland Security circling, helicopters all over the place.
Hey, bring the dogs.
You have another piece for us?
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do. This is a Bach piece, and the reason why I wanted to play the Liszt and the Mozart first was because they were both, even though they were in completely separate time periods, both incredibly inspired by Bach and his fugues. Preludes and fugues, which there's 32 of them. This is the 22nd one. But even in the Mozart I just played, the first movement, there's a little bit of, you could almost call it subject play, or just interchanging voices, and even, Liszt, he studied his works like crazy, and you can tell in some of their music that there's a lot of Bach-inspired motives and themes, and so anyway, this is the 22nd Prelude and Fugue. It's in B flat minor. It's I love this piece. I learned it back at Temple, and I brought it back for my audition and purposes, and for this as well. It's slow, but in a dance-ish kind of way. To me, it's kind of existentialist almost. Whenever I play this piece, I always find myself questioning, like, why are we here? What are we doing? Like, what is death? What is life? Like, what does all this mean? So I just really feel that this piece kind of connects to that constant question we all have, which is, what am I doing? And it's very beautiful. So this is, one more quick thing about the Bach Prelude and Fugues. Usually they're 3 to 5 voices. This one has 5 voices in it, and it's in B flat minor again. So anyway, this is Bach Prelude and Fugue, number 22 in B flat minor.
Margaret, do you happen to play any other instruments?
No, I don't. I've always been interested in learning another instrument, and actually at Temple, I did pick up the viola a little bit. I love the sound of the viola. I think it's just such a beautiful instrument, even though it is kind of the almost reject cousin of the second violin, but not really.
So what's your level on that?
Oh, beginner, way beginner.
Okay, thank you. I was getting worried. I'm like, multiple instruments.
Yeah, I wish.
It's like life is not always fair, and that ends, so.
I can sing a little bit, but not really.
Yeah, we all like to think we can.
Yeah, shower, car.
Is there any specific, I guess when we're talking about pianos here, any specific make of piano you enjoy playing on more than another?
There is. There is one piano that I kind of put on the highest pedestal. The first time I encountered this piano was at Temple, actually. My teacher at the time, Dr. Charles Abramovic, we had a wonderful studio. It was so much fun. We would pick a different composer every semester, and we'd study 1 to 2 of his pieces. And then we'd put on a big recital, and he would set it all up at different halls and different schools. And at the end of the year, then we would go and get some dinner. You know, if it was like a Romanian, like Bartok or something, we'd get Romanian food. It was great. So there was one recital in particular. It was at another university. This piano, I have not forgotten. It's like one of those lovers you never forget or something. I don't know. But this piano was the make of Bosendorf. And I remember we all had to prepare a little speech beforehand. And at that time, my stage nerves were a lot worse than they are now, if you can imagine that.
You're doing all right.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So I was stuttering, I was mumbling, I could tell I was getting really flushed, you know, you just get really hot and sweaty, and it was really embarrassing. And then I sat down at the piano, and it was the Bosendorf, as I said, and the veneer was a very dark brown, maybe black. It wasn't like a high polish like this, it was sort of a matte finish. It was beautiful. And you know, one of my old teachers in high school had ivory keys, but this piano had the most beautiful set of ivory keys, and there is a difference. It's a lot softer. It just feels really nice on your hands, and it kind of, if your hands are sweaty, it kind of helps with that a little bit. Kind of, there's a little more grip with the ivory keys, and the bass, just the colors that I could get from the bass were beautiful and deep and luscious, and the treble wasn't too high. It wasn't, I mean, not too high, but too, you know, trebly, like really pitchy and stark, and it was just one of the most beautiful instruments, besides my Blüthner, which I love. One of the most beautiful instruments I think I've probably ever played on, and it was just a wonderful experience. I'll never forget it. Or the Bosendorf.
That's got to be nice, especially knowing, like, on average, like at your peak, how many hours a day are you practicing?
Oh, I mean, there were stretches where I would probably practice about 10 hours a day at Temple. I don't do that as much anymore. Just, it was really hard on my wrists. I had to start using that icy hot stuff, you know, on my wrists, and lots of Advil. So I would go a little crazy with, you know, the 10 hours. I'd get up at 5:30 and go practice at 6, and it
makes sense. You would definitely know just by feel of the keys if you're spending that many hours, you know, in front of a piano there.
Oh, so many hours. Hours and hours.
Now, in my head, I'm picturing, I'm sure some of the people in the audience as well, is, you know, the type of music you listen to at home. I mean, do you actually listen to any contemporary music? I'm sure they're all thinking, like, you're just classical music constantly playing, but do you actually listen to any contemporary?
I do, actually. I have a lot of guilty pleasures. I will admit to them, and you all can laugh, but I do listen to my fair share of Britney Spears and Kesha.
Also guilty over here, so.
No, but I enjoy, you know, the Beatles and music like that, where it's just, there's so much wonderful musicality and just professional and wonderful to listen to. So it's not just all classical. I do listen to a variety of music. Yeah.
I think that shows that. I mean, I guess it gives you
two sides, a kind of little inspiration to maybe mix some stuff in there for you as well. But you have another piece for us?
Yes, I do. And this one was kind of pulled together a little bit a couple days ago as well. This piece is the Beethoven third movement of the Appassionata. It's one of his, very well-known pieces. I think if you're a pianist, you kind of have to go through the gauntlet of playing the Appassionata. It's like one of those, anyway. So this piece was written around the same time as a Waldstein sonata and Désir, or I'm not sure, but his three most famous sonatas. And Beethoven was really, I think, as far as his piano solo repertoire, he was at the height of his maturity when he played these pieces and kind of really in the thick of the Romantic period. Romantic period, there's a lot of chromaticism. It leads into Impressionism, which is, starting to get into atone. Anyway, this piece is probably sort of chromatically driven, and it's intense. It's a really intense piece, especially that third movement. It seems like it just keeps going and it never stops, and there's a couple resting points here and there, but it's a very driven piece. It's fast, it's loud at times. It's quite beautiful as well, and it's probably his most well-known piece besides his fifth and the ninth. So anyway, this is the third movement of Beethoven's Appassionata in, F minor. And so again, this was learned in a couple days, so bear with me, okay? Thank you. My nose starts running in this cold weather.
Mark, you just finished up a round of auditions. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. I actually this past summer I went to visit my sister in Colorado, but she just moved back to Philly. But anyway, she was living in Boulder, Colorado for a short amount of time. And before I went to visit her, I wasn't really planning on going back to school. I just was done with it. I was, I can't do it. There's so much pressure. It's so intense. I can't do it. And so one day we just randomly decided to go visit CU, Colorado University in Boulder. And it was wonderful getting back onto that campus and walking around, visiting the music school, talking to different representatives. It was, re-inspired me to go back to school. And so as soon as I got home, I told my mom, hey, I want to go back to school, which was a complete 180, not a 360, otherwise I'd be in the same place. So it was a complete 180. And so I didn't have that much time because I was like, well, I want to go back in the spring. I was so inspired. I was like, oh, go back in the spring. So yes, recently I got in a few audition tapes to CU, and I just completed an audition over at Western. I think it was on last Tuesday or Wednesday. Sorry, I have a really bad sense of time. So yeah, I just finished 2 auditions, and there's been other schools who have been kind of emailing me like, hey, we really liked your audition videos. I'm like, oh. I currently am studying with the professor of piano, I guess she's the chair over at Western, and I absolutely love her, and was unofficially accepted into the program with the high possibility of a scholarship, so I'm very excited to be going back. So yeah, no, it's good. I feel really fortunate. There's been a lot of struggles along the way, but for whatever reason, life is just taking a wonderful turn, and I'm actually excited to go back to school. So yeah.
What's that like sitting? I mean, give me the full process of the
Okay.
audition, because that's kind of interesting to, is it just a panel of people that you just play one song for and you're done, whether, that one piece decides it all, or, I mean, how would you describe the process?
The process is long and a little bit painful because there's a lot of sitting around. So specifically for Western, though, I went there around 9 in the morning. We had to fill out this little bit of paperwork, and so we could hand it to our teachers, like, what have you been doing for the past year? So it was just kind of those sort of general questions. And then we sat around for 40 minutes until we went in, and there was lectures by different teachers who worked there, and sort of just like a general introduction to the School of Music. And then specifically for me, I was the only person auditioning for their piano program that day. So I had to sit around for a couple hours, probably 3.
That's really good for the nerves, I bet.
Oh yeah, it was
Waiting.
it was wonderful sitting there, and your stomach is in knots. You can't eat anything. So finally, around I think it was 12:30, I got to go in and warm up before my 1 o'clock audition, and then you go in. Specifically for Western, there was only two of the piano professors there, including Dr. Roeder, excuse me, and I guess it's her colleague, Professor Jeremy Siskin. They're both 2 wonderful pianists, and so first they, asked me, well, what are you playing today? So I said, well, I have the Bach, the Mozart, and the Liszt, which I'll be playing at the end. And so I go through those 3 pieces, and they give not really comments, but you can kind of tell based on their expressions whether they liked it or not. So you don't even need comments. And then they asked me after that to do a little bit of sight reading, which I did okay. It wasn't great. I'm still working on my sight reading. And they also asked me to play something by ear, which I did not do that well at, and it was only Happy Birthday. Which you would think any good pianist should know, Happy Birthday. So one of the things I've been really spending a lot of my focus, time, and energy at the piano is practicing Happy Birthday now. So that's pretty much, and then you leave, and that's it, and you just have this feeling of like, well, what now?
So it's a lot of sit around and wait.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I'm done.
And then
all
you're
right.
done. It's like literally you're in there for 10 minutes after waiting for 3 or 4 hours, and you're just like, oh, that was kind of not really a waste of my day, but sort of.
Now, as you're furthering your career or furthering your education in music, I mean, what career options are available for a pianist?
Well, there's probably two specifically, but being a creative person, you can always kind of make a job for yourself. Well, particularly for me, I do want to have a studio. I have lots of ideas and visions of what I want to do with my kids. Not my kids, but the kids I'm teaching. I don't have any kids. But, I just have a lot of ideas that I want to try out on students, and I do want to perform. If I can wrangle in my nerves a little bit, then I do think I could be a good performer. I know I won't have that concert career dream I had when I was 5, but, that doesn't mean I won't be
much of us are
satisfied.
doing what we dreamt of doing all the time, though.
Astronauts and firemen. But yeah, I think, every day I practice is another step towards my future. It's another step towards creating my studio. And, teaching is a wonderful profession as a musician. You're not only helping a student kind of open their mind to something, you're learning about yourself as well, and it does prepare you to be a better performer and a better musician. You really have to think outside the box when you're going back down to, okay, what is middle C? Yeah, no, you really have to kind of stretch your mind in order to teach, which is something I realized at Temple. But it's a challenge I look forward to.
Your sixth piece for us this evening?
Yes, right, of course. The sixth piece I will be playing is, it's a Spanish piece by Joaquin La Regla. I can't roll my R's very well. It was written in the 18th century, so it is romantic. He is not as well known of a composer, but I do have a very soft spot in my heart for this piece. I do a lot of exploratory work both inside and outside of the practice room. I love listening to new pieces. I love finding new material that I can play with. And when I found this piece, I was really excited. It was probably my second semester at Temple. And I brought it to Dr. Abramovic, and I said, can I please play this piece, doctor? Can I pretty please? And, well, not like that, but anyway. And he said, yeah, give it a go. And I really feel like when I learned this piece, I was excited because it kind of took me from being just an intermediate player to getting into that more advanced repertoire. And it's, again, another gregarious, funny, kind of slap-happy piece almost. It's I honestly think it's the perfect showcase piece. It's at this point in my life, it's not very technically difficult, but it is. But sorry. But either way, it's a very happy piece. It's in the key of C major, which everyone loves C major. It's probably the happiest key. So this is Jota de Concerto by Joaquin La Regla, written in the 18th century. That was also pulled together in 2 days. So.
Very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, that felt good. I think I'm getting over those nerves finally.
Tonight's show will actually be available for download on iTunes. My partner has his own podcast as well, anywheretheneedledrops.com. So if you guys are at all interested, he actually does a regular podcast which focuses on music and that sort of thing. So if you guys get a chance, definitely check out his website. I as well host a podcast, but it's more crude humor, little not quite up the same alley here. But if you do feel inclined, I do have cards up there. But it will be released on iTunes and available at anywheretheneedledrops.com. So check that out. Margaret, earlier you were talking about Horowitz. You were kind of going on about him. Why specifically do you enjoy him so much versus someone like Bach or Beethoven?
Well, Horowitz was historically one of the best, probably the best pianist in history. He took romantic playing to a new level, and he was through and through a romantic player. When he was in his 20s, his playing was bombastic. It was wonderful. It was fiery. It was in your face. It was just dramatic and on edge. And he, to me, and his life story is sad. I mean, he went through a lot as a kid. He lost his sister. He lost his family. He was in his probably late teens. It was 1940s. So we had all the crazy World War II. I'm bad at history. All the that going on. So he had to flee to America. And actually, his first debut, this is the most inspiring story for me. His debut to America was playing Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto, which is probably the hardest concerto to play. Well, there's a lot of 20th century stuff and 21st century stuff that's scary, but so far, people tend to agree that Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto is very difficult. And what happened was the conductor, the pianist they had in place got sick, or he canceled, or I'm forgetting the story completely, but he basically, Horowitz's agent, basically said, all right, in 30 minutes they're doing Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto. He had not played it since he was 15, and he was about 21, 22 at the time. So he has 30 minutes to warm up. They'd been walking around outside, just looking at New York and going to the zoo, and just, thin gloves that didn't really keep his hands warm. 30 minutes to warm up for Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto, which he hadn't played in probably 4 or 5 years. He goes on the stage, and everyone's like, who is this guy? Who's the new meat in town? Like, what is he doing up there? That's how I feel right now. But he played it so well that it was the jumpstart to his career, and New Yorkers were raving about him. He was wonderful and so intense and inspiring and just truly probably the best player known to history besides Rachmaninoff. Even then, he competes with him. But Horowitz is just, his life, the way he plays his music has just always touched me so deeply and has inspired me continuously through today to try to better myself as a pianist, as a human being. Horowitz was funny, he was personal, but he was also a genius, so he was kind of weird about people. And he had a lot of weird things. Like he would cancel, he was supposed to do a lecture at Juilliard, sorry if I'm rambling. He would do a lecture. He was supposed to do a lecture at Juilliard. I forget what year it was. And literally the day before, he canceled it because he got sick. So he would do kind of weird things like that, but he had horrible nerves as well. I mean, he would get sick before he goes on stage, and he would leave. His hands would be shaking, and he's one of the best players in history. So right there, you know, someone who can get over their nerves like that and just do it and let the show go on, you know, that's just truly inspiring to me. I'm a Horowitz at heart. I love him. So that's, you know, definitely my favorite pianist of all time.
Well, Margaret, it's been an absolute pleasure hearing you tonight, and I can't thank you enough for letting me talk you into doing something like this. But I pose one last question before you play your final piece tonight. You know, we're talking about continuing your education in music and career and, you know, your future, but how specifically are you going to judge your success or failure as a pianist as, you know, years from now?
That's a very good question. When I was younger, I used to think if I wasn't a concert pianist, I'd be a complete failure. My life would have been for nothing. Since then, my perspective has definitely done a 180. To me, it's not really so much about success or failure. It's what am I doing that makes me happy? Does this instrument provide me with a rich life? It's, you know, it's a tough question. Because I really, you know, sometimes when I'm playing, my hair stands up, I get goosebumps, and I'm just fully into it, and I love it so much. And I'm starting, instead of seeing it so black and white, it's more just about, well, I love it, and it enriches my life. And if I can make myself feel something, or if an audience member comes up to me and says, oh, you made me happy, you made me sad, you made me joyous, whatever it is, if I can receive an emotional response from someone through my playing, to me right there, that's all the success I need. It's just, music is so much about emotional communication. It's just, for whatever reason, music is intrinsically a part of humanity. It's been with us since the dawn of time. And so to get that kind of an emotional response, I can't think of a better way to celebrate my love for the piano. So there's also, before I play my last piece, there are definitely a lot of people I owe my current standing to as far as Western and my healthy living. And, you know, I first of all really want to thank all the teachers who have supported me throughout the years. You know, my high school teacher, Donna De Pasquale. I want to thank Mrs. Poquette when I was 5 and squirming in the chair, and you know, and Dr. Igor Resniansky and Charles Abramovic and Dr. Sylvia Roeder are just wonderful teachers, have taught me at the perfect time in my life. It's almost serendipitous. And I really owe a lot to my family and friends as well. Specifically my mother and my sister, and my father's been there too, and I owe them a lot. They've been with me through everything, all the ups and downs, all the successes, and falling 7 times and getting up 8 times, you know, that's what it's about. So, but I really do, this hasn't just been a singular journey. I realize now that I've been supported so much by all my family members and friends. They've been there with me the whole time, and so I really owe a lot to them for helping me get to this point in my life, which I'm very, very happy with. So anyway, this last piece is the 10th Transcendental Etude by Liszt. And Liszt saw Beethoven as a titan of music. He actually said in one of his letters, I will never be as good as Beethoven. I don't know how I could possibly write the quality of music he writes, something along those lines. And so Liszt was really intimidated, and he loved Beethoven. But I think this piece, I think Liszt underestimates himself. Yeah, he wrote a lot of corny pieces, but this is not one of them. This is a picture of a man who is fighting with himself, who is struggling with his own existence, who honestly might feel a little bit out of place as far as time period. I mean, he not only wrote a lot of romantic music, but a lot of his stuff that wasn't published was venturing into atonal music and really music of the future, as he said in one of his letters. This piece it's quite beautiful. It's very emotionally extreme. It's the 10th Transcendental Etude. And one more thing I want to mention that I think is really cool. Liszt was so inspired by Bach that he based his 12 etudes off of Bach's 32 Prelude and Fugues. Bach wrote 32 Prelude and Fugues. They're all in all the keys, C to C. And the Transcendental Etudes, there's 12 of them written C to C. They're in all the keys. And that was directly inspired from Bach. And I think, Liszt, why do you underestimate yourself? You're a genius. So anyway, this is the 10th Transcendental Etude in F minor by Franz Liszt.